episode of Cook the Book, where we are taking one of the gorgeous recipes out of my brand new cookbook, which you guys know is Treat Yourself Healthy, and I'm cooking it for you so you can see a live action shot of how it all comes together. And the recipe that we're doing today is inspired from when we could all travel. We all remember what that was like. I went to Hong Kong after visiting Macau for a cookbook award ceremony. And on the way back from Macau, we decided to stop in Hong Kong. Now, I'd never been to Hong Kong before, and I always like to do my due diligence before I travel. So I started to inspect the internet on what were some very popular Hong Kong style dishes or Cantonese style dishes, and I kept on coming back to this pudding, and it was either served hot or cold, and it was a ginger coconut steamed pudding. And I thought to myself, I can make that and I can add a bit of a healthy twist. So I've done it and I've included it in the cookbook. It is on page 124. And I've actually got this steamed ginger coconut milk pudding. I've got it in the celebrations chapter because I believe that you can cook this dish as part of a dinner party, or you can even cook it and serve it on a beautiful buffet, dessert buffet. And of course, it's got no gluten, it's got no sugar, and it's got no dairy, so it's really good for our bodies as well. So we're going to get into the recipe. As I was saying, it's on 124 of the new cookbook, Treat Yourself Healthy, which is very exciting. And it's a quick recipe as well, so you'll be happy to know that. And when I actually sampled the version in Hong Kong, I was absolutely hooked, because you can honestly serve it hot or cold. So the first thing we want to do is think about our steamer, because yes, we are steaming this recipe. So I have a large pot on here. I'm going to put some water into that pot, probably around about sort of 10 to 15 centimeters of water is going to go into the base of my pot. And depending on how big your pot is will determine how much water obviously you need to add. And then I'm going to place the steamer basket on top. Now what I have underneath my lid, as you guys can see there, I actually have a basket that has perforated holes in it. So it is a purpose-built steamer, which I'm going to place on the top there. A lid is really important in making sure that that steamer is really well fitted as well, to ensure that we're capturing all the steam that we're going to create when we turn it on. So I'm putting this on, and I'm going to put it onto a medium temperature, because as I was saying, this recipe doesn't take long to prepare. So by the time I've got some steam built up in my steamer here, I think we'll be ready to start cooking. It's that quick. So we want to grab ourselves up a bowl, which I have right here. And then into our bowl, we're going to be adding in 4 egg whites. So this recipe does not have any yolks. In fact, the pudding comes out very milky looking. It's just fabulous. So 4 egg whites is going to go into my bowl first, and ideally you're working with room temperature egg whites are the best ones to work with here. Next to that, we're going to be adding our sweetener, and when we add our sweetener today, we're also going to be adding that fabulous prebiotic quality, so it feeds your healthy gut microbiome, which is wonderful. It basically feeds your probiotics. So in order for you to have a healthy gut microbiome, so all the stuff that goes on in there is really, really good and working for you, is you've got to be consuming foods that are high in probiotic quality. And so, you know, they are wonderful foods, and there's lots of fresh fruit and vegetables that are going to give you such wonderful probiotics. But in order to feed your probiotics, as they feed off something, they need a prebiotic, and that's what our Pure As Inulin powder is it's a prebiotic dietary fiber. So it gives you fiber content, it gives you prebiotics which feed your probiotics, but it's also tastes like candy floss. So you can add it to recipes and feed your healthy gut bacteria, and it smells and tastes like candy floss. So we're putting in 4 tablespoons of our Pure As Inulin powder, and of course you can buy your own Pure As Inulin powder from our store, Bridget's.shop. We sell the purest and the best inulin powder on the planet, 100% chicory inulin. So that goes in there. I'm going to use just a little bit later on, and once that's in there, you also just want to add just a pinch of mineral salt as well. You're taking up your whisk, just incorporate that. And there's not really too much rhyme or reason into how you do this. Yes, you want the egg whites to be well whisked, but you don't have to create a meringue or anything like that. I'm literally just making sure that the inulin is really well mixed through and it's dissolved through nicely, but you're not having to beat it too long, which is another really cool thing about this recipe. And it doesn't take long, as I was saying. All right, so that's looking pretty good. You can sort of see that the egg whites there is a few little foamy bubbles on top, which is really nice. But in general, you know, you haven't had to do too much work, but you definitely need a whisk for this, rather than a wooden spoon, because you want to get everything as well incorporated as possible. So that is looking good. Okay, the next thing that we need to think about doing is obviously adding in the coconut milk. So I have in my jug here 450 mils of coconut milk. I'm not using a low-fat one. You need to, whatever milk you decide to use, because you could actually use soy milk as well if you wanted to, because it's quite creamy. But you need to make sure that you're using a full-fat version. So I'm using coconut milk, and 450 mils is around about 15 fluid ounces. So that just goes straight into there, and we whisk as we're going in, just like that. And there's only, would you believe, one more ingredient, and that of course is the ginger. So in my jar here I have freshly grated ginger, and what I want to actually get, I don't want to have pieces of ginger through this, I just want to extract the ginger juice. So there's a really cool trick to this, but you need to use freshly grated ginger juice, ginger. So in my jar, in my little glass jar there, I already have some ginger juice, and it's so easy to actually bring about. All you need to do is take up your grated ginger, and then I've got a little sort of sieve over top of that, a little mesh sieve. I'm taking about a tablespoon of ginger, just going to pop that on top, and then just using my spoon, look at that, you literally just squish it down, and you're going to start to extract the juice. Now you're after around about 3 tablespoons of pure ginger juice in total. So depending on your ginger, it'll also depend whether it's new ginger or it's slightly older. They all have different moisture levels. You know, depends on what that ginger is and how many tablespoons of ginger you're going to need to extract that 3 tablespoons. Now another thing you can do is you can actually purchase pure ginger juice in your health food store. It comes in a little bottle. It's absolutely delicious. And if you find that ginger may be a little bit expensive in your neck of the woods, that might be a really nice alternative. Just pop on into your health food store, even go online. Pure ginger juice is fabulous to have in your pantry, lasts forever. But of course, there is no way that I'm throwing away that. That's still good. That can go into yogi tea and all sorts of things. So I'm just going to pop that straight back into the top of my jar and keep it for later. So you don't waste anything. And of course, what we now have is this fabulous ginger juice, which is just wonderful. And you need, like I said, 3 tablespoons, 1, 2, 3 of ginger juice. Whisk that through, and that's the mixture kind of done. Told you it was easy. I love it when they're easy. Right, over here, we now have our steamer. You can kind of see that we've got steam on the top there, which is perfect, which is exactly what we want. I'm just going to quickly take off the lid. A little bit of steam. We could just do with a little bit more. Just turned up the temperature ever so slightly, just so we can get a little bit more steam action happening. And while that is happening, I'm going to strain our liquid here into a jug. Oh, I don't know if I thought this through very well. We might have a mess. Wish me luck. But no, we'll be alright. You want to strain it just in case there's little, like pieces of egg that haven't quite mixed through, or even pieces of ginger, because one of the beauties about this dish is it's silky. It is absolutely silky and gorgeous, and that steaming cooking method ensures that we get such a wonderfully light pudding as well. So this little step here of just straining it into a jug, ideally, because we're going to use the jug to help us to portion the puddings into bowls. Just this little step here will just make sure that if we've got anything in the pudding that won't potentially give us that fabulous creaminess that is just makes it so wonderful, will catch it in this sieve. And by the way, I'm so impressed that I spilled a little bit, but not too much, that's all right. Okay, so once we're at this stage, take a little spoon, give it a little bit of a push down. And the other thing that this actually gets rid of is some of the bubbles. Because believe it or not, bubbles are not ideal, and I'll show you how to get rid of them in a second. So now that that's done, I'm going to clean my bench, because you all don't like dirty benches. Clean my bench down. I got this wonderful jug of pudding mixture, and of course what you can see now is I have a really good steaming action happening inside of my pot now as well. So I'm actually going to turn that down. I don't want it to steam and evaporate all the water, so I'm just going to turn it down very quickly. So this pudding makes 4 portions, by the way, and you want to grab yourself up some bowls that are heat proof. So I've got some ceramic bowls, and I've also got some heat proof really solid little plastic ones as well, which have got some great colour. And then, oh, there's 4, that's why I've got 4 bowls. And then you just want to portion the mixture into the pudding bowls, and this is 1 portion each. You could make a really big one, but I do find, even on a dessert buffet, these are really cool because people come along and you can put them into small ramekins. You can probably make 8 to 10 ramekins, and everyone gets to take their own little pudding, which is really, really awesome. So don't be afraid to use even smaller bowls still, or ramekins, because you do get a decent amount of pudding. But I'm doing 4 portions of pudding that's feeding 4 people, like a dinner party. And then what you want to do is, with your spoon, just go over, and if you can see if there's any bubbles in your mixture, you just want to just skim the top of those little bubbles. We don't want any bubbles in there, which may sound really weird, but it's just to give it that really smooth texture. Not having bubbles on top, by just using your spoon just to very gently skim the top of the pudding is going to help to make it silky, silky, silky smooth. Alright, it's looking pretty good. I've got a few bubbles on that one that I'm just going to very gently take off. There we go. Wonderful. And I can see 1 big bubble here, which I'm also going to remove. Alright, very good. We are on to the next stage, and the next stage is grab yourself up some cling film or some Glad wrap, and we're going to be very tightly covering the tops of these puddings, because once they go into the steamer, we actually don't want to get any moisture inside of it. The steam is going to gently cook it, which is what we want, but we don't want there to be any moisture that gets inside the puddings from the steam. So you want to do this quite tightly. I forgot my knife, so I'm using my hands, which is not ideal. Quite tightly, just like that. See how good that is? Really press it down. Make sure there's no way that we can get steam into the puddings. Just like that. I'll do another one. Ideally, when you come to this point, you're doing this with a knife, but I left my knife in the other kitchen. So I am tearing, which is doing my OCD in like you would not believe. But that's okay. Alright, so we've got a couple here. I'm going to pop them into the steamer. Now my steamer can only do 2 at a time. So you may have to do these, in batches, depending on the size of your steamer as well. Don't worry, the plastic is not going to burn, which is because it's very gentle heat that we're using, because we are using steam, not a direct heat. And all you do is go over to your steamer, pop them in, watching the hands though, because it gets very hot in the steamer, making sure it's nice and flat. Pop them in, just like that. Lovely. And then we're going to pop the lid on, and in about 10 to 15 minutes time, we're going to check on our puddings to see how they are cooking. So it has been around about 12 minutes of steaming so far, and depending on the size of the bowls or the ramekins you choose will obviously determine how long it's going to take for your puddings to steam, but around about 15 minutes if you're doing 4 individual puddings. If you're doing them a bit smaller, like in smaller ramekins, they could take 10 minutes. But the way to tell is when you lift the lid off very carefully, just watch for that steam, because it can sometimes hit you in the face and be really painful, so be very careful. Stand back and remove the lid, and then what you want to do is just give the puddings a little bit of a jiggle. And what you want to see is a jiggle, but not a liquid sort of a slosh. At the moment I can still see that the puddings in the middle of the bowls are not quite set yet. So we can talk about the toppings. And the toppings that I have for you guys today are simple toppings, but they really do add an element of elegance to this dish, which is really nice. So I decided to top my puddings with some berries, and what I have in my bowl here is actually frozen mixed berries. That's all it is. So I put, my pot. I put frozen mixed berries into my pot. No liquid whatsoever, by the way, just berries. And to that, I also added just a little bit of inulin to sweeten. I allowed the berries to come to the boil. As soon as they boiled, I took them off, and this is the liquid that you are left with. It is pretty cool, isn't it? Pretty awesome. So I'm going to be using these berries. As I said, they've been sweetened with a bit of inulin powder. Once again, that wonderful prebiotic quality. And I'm going to be using the liquid as well, just to top our wonderful puddings. But the other thing that you could do if you want to is you could also just use some fresh berries as well. Berries are one of my favorite fruits to add because they are so, give me a second, I can hear my alarm going off. Best way to set your timer, right? Berries are really good because they are really low in natural sugars. So they are a fruit that you can eat without worrying that you're going to be spiking your blood glucose or raising your insulin levels too high. And they're really low on calories. They've got really good amounts of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. And I call blueberries, by the way, brain berries because they're so good for your brain health. So fresh berries are my natural choice when it comes to topping these puddings. But if you've got maybe some kiwi fruit, would be amazing. Just chop it up really small, like I've done here with the strawberries. That would be really nice as well. But I'll leave that to you guys, what you decide. But ideally, you want to go for a fruit that has it's quite soft, because remember, silky pudding, we want to have really nice soft fruit to go with it as well. So let's have another check since my alarm did go off. What's happening inside? And I am fairly confident that we've got a lovely little set there. It's got a little bit of a wiggle on it, just a little bit, so I'm probably just going to leave it just for another couple of minutes, and this is all about you just keeping an eye on things. I'm going to leave it for a couple of minutes just to make sure that that middle is really well set through before we take it out of the steamer. Alright, we are going to do another little check to see how we're going. Remember, you're looking for a jiggle in the mix, just of course being very careful. Yeah, good, happy now. So I've got a bit of a wobble, but not too much wobble. So I know it's lovely and set. So you want to grab yourself up a tea towel and sort of fold it into maybe thirds like that. And then you might be able to go through and just pick up your bowl out of the steamer and pop it on down. So like anything to do with steam, you have to be very careful, even when you are removing the cling film that is on top of the pudding, because there will be some steam that is trapped inside. And as you can see, we have a lovely jiggly pudding. So at this point in time, you could do a number of things. So you could allow this to cool down completely. So you could allow it to cool down completely. It'll firm up even further as it's cooling, and then you could serve this as a cool or a cold dessert, obviously with some of our wonderful berries on top, some fresh berries as well, and some of that lovely juice that came out of our berries. Or you could also serve this as a hot pudding, so straight out of the steamer. And both are amazing. It all depends on what you would prefer to do. So I am not going to make you wait till this cools down. I am going to finish it off, and of course it's relatively simple to do. So I'm going to take some of our berries and a little bit of our liquid and just pop that on top, just like that. Some of them are going to seep through, which is wonderful, but you can see the jiggle. Oh, I love it so much. I just love this pudding. It is so wonderful to eat. The texture is glorious, but then of course the flavor of the ginger just comes jumping at you, which is so good. I'm going to also, just for a little bit of color, I'm going to pop a couple of these fresh berries on top here as well. Why not some wonderful brain berries too? They can go on. You could even, if you wanted to be real fancy, you could get a bit of fresh mint. Why not, right? And put a little sprig of fresh mint on there, and that would be just as nice. But I'm just going to finish it off very, very simply with a bit of inulin powder sprinkled on the top, which kind of acts like our dusting powder, our icing sugar. So just a little bit of a sprinkle on top of our berries, just like that. Lovely. One of the things about inulin too, you'll notice it's all kind of steaming up pretty quick. The heat does that. So if you've ever seen your inulin clump, it's moisture and heat. So don't be too worried about it. So now that that's like that, I've got a little cute little plate here that we can serve it off over, and there you have this amazing steamed ginger and coconut milk pudding. Remember, it is on page 124 of the book. I'll go on here. 124 of the book, and it is in the celebration section because I believe this is one of those dishes that deserves to be celebrated. I mean, as well, in the celebration section, we also have, look at that. That is my zero sugar pavlova is in there. There is the most amazing, oh, these are incredible chocolate chestnut pots are in there as well. There is some great recipes like cheesecake, and of course this cake I actually designed for Mahi is 3 layers of gluten-free, sugar-free goodness, and it's wonderful. So that is in the book. That is in the book as well. If you want to get your copy, all you need to do is go to treatyourselfhealthy.net. You can pick up your copy now. It is now available, and then you can keep on coming back and watching us every Sunday as we cook the book, cooking our way through that amazing book, so you get to see the live action shots as well. So I hope you enjoy this recipe. Let me know if you make it. Let me know what you think. Until next time, I look forward to seeing you back here in the kitchen. Everyone be well and be safe. Take care. Bye.